What's going on YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing you another video. Today I'm bringing a video on Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel. This is a review of the first episode of Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel, and this episode was actually pretty good. I actually thought it was really good for what it was. Again, it wasn't the best episode ever, but I think for a more recent season episode, and for one that's a premiere for the 25th season of Power Rangers, it was definitely not a bad episode. For starters, we got to see some really cool characters return, and a whole bunch of interesting events happen. It was a little bit rushed, and there were some things that were interesting that I will bring up in it, but I'll tell you about this all throughout my review of this first episode. So for starters, the episode is called Echoes of Evil, if you don't know. Cool title, I like it a lot. The episode starts off with us getting a little bit of a backstory, as usual, of what's happened. In this case, talking about how, you know, the Ninja Nexus Prism got destroyed, the Ranger Power Stars got destroyed, and, well, the Ninja Nexus Prism didn't get destroyed, but got damaged to the point that they can't use it anymore. At the same time, Galvanox was destroyed, and Odious had betrayed him, and an asteroid threw her into space. So all that had happened during Ninja Steel at the very end, and now we are present day, and what happens is that we end up seeing that 3 villains from the past are returning. These 3 villains are Sledge, Wrench, and Poisandra. The three of, you know, 5 core villains that were on the villain base from Dino Charge and Dino Supercharge. So yes, returning villains. Very cool. As far as things go, they're on their ship and they are planning on, and they're just traveling through. They find that there's this ship that's crashed, and it is the Galaxy ship, and they want to go on there and maybe salvage it. When they go to look, they find out that apparently, well, Wrench discovers that there is Super Ninja Steel on the ship, so they end up boarding the ship, going to go and find it, and they end up noticing that there was a game show that was run here, and it seems that the place had been destroyed and everyone had potentially died or been completely destroyed in the process. But he was going to scrap it, take the ship, and get the Super Ninja Steel or whatever, when suddenly Madame Odious appears and basically confirms that, no, there are people still here. And we end up seeing that Madame Odious is there with Cosmo and some Bastrobots. So, clearly, everyone's there. Sledge, you know, says sorry for thinking that there was no one there or whatever, and offers his service in repairing the ship in exchange for the asteroids. And the thing is that Odious doesn't know why he would want the asteroid, but she says, agreed, that works for me. And so what ends up happening is that Wrench goes to work on fixing the ship. In the meantime, Sledge, when he returns, he actually returns with some prisoners. One of those prisoners is a villain that was from the Japanese equivalent of Ninja Steel, which is, you know, Ninja, which is Shuriken Sentai Ninja, and she offers to tell Madame Odious about why Sledge wants the asteroid, because you know, Odious has no idea why he would want the asteroid. He just thought, you know, she just thinks it's just an asteroid. She didn't know that it has Ninja Steel on it. So what ends up happening is that she offers to tell Madame Odious if she can free her. So what happens is that Odious agrees to it, and what happened from here is she frees her and the prisoner tells Madame Odious that they're planning on taking the Super Ninja Steel from the asteroid. That's what's in the actual asteroid that they want. So basically that intrigues Madame Odious, and she feels that she's grateful that she did free this prisoner. At that point, what ends up happening is that Sledge goes on his way after repairing the ship, and they think nothing of it, because what happens is that the prisoner actually takes the Super Ninja Steel from the asteroid and puts it into small containment boxes, into a box, so that they could create Ninja Stars from it if they can find the Ninja Nexus Prism. So what ends up happening is that from here we end up also finding out what the name of this villain is. And the name of that character in Japan was Ariki. The name in this show is actually Vidana. Not Madonna, but Vidana, so with a V instead of an M. So that is interesting. And she has a kind of, you know, she has an interesting accent. She seems like some snobby, rich kind of character who's, you know, all about glamour, but like has a certain accent to her. She's interesting. I don't mind her. I wasn't expecting the accent that they gave her. I was expecting a little bit more of a feminine voice rather than just kind of like an uptight, rich, and snobby voice, which is what she sort of has in a way. But it's fine. So what ends up happening is that Odious plans to go down and, you know, find the Ninja Nexus prism and everything. Then in the meantime, we end up seeing the Rangers are back in school. They've actually been off for summer break, and they're all happy to have returned. We also see Dane Romero, Levi and Brody's father, has returned. He hasn't been to the high school since, you know, he was there several years prior. So he ends up returning the trophy that he got when he was there years ago. If you remember, I believe it was the first episode, or it was either the first and second episode, where, you know, they ended up going to find the trophy, which had a letter in it or whatever. And so in this case, they finally returned the trophy back to the school. So that's kind of nice to see that they're actually referencing something that they did in the first episode of Ninja Steel. One other thing that I forgot to mention, which might be interesting to note, is that asteroid, people are suspecting that the one that Sledge had might actually be the same asteroid that Sledge had in the very first episode of Dino Charge when he when he was in the past 65 million years ago. So in other words, meaning that this would imply, if this is true, that Dino Charge takes place several million years after Ninja Steel, which seems a little bit weird, but kind of makes sense in a way. Again, don't hold me to that, but that is a thought. So let's keep going with this. I'll go into more of that towards the end, but I just want to bring that up front now. So anyway, what does end up happening from here is that the Rangers are back in school. They're happy to go back to school again, and Victor and Monty appear, and they basically say, we're not going back to school this year because we created a new product, because they end up just, there's this product that's on TV, which is this thing called like Miracle Monster Repellent, which Victor and Monty are promoting, and this product is one that they're advertising because they were the only two humans that were able to escape a monster attack, and so people actually believe them. And the repellent is exactly what they actually did to get away from the monsters. It's gas. So what ends up happening is that everyone believes it, that they all buy into it. In fact, they actually make like $10 million, crazily enough. We don't actually find that out till the very end, but it's interesting to think about that. So at that point, they actually offer $1 million of those dollars to the school, so that they can open up a wing, expand the school with a wing that's dedicated to them in their names. And initially they think everything's going to be good, it's going to work out. Preston questions the legitimacy of this a monster repellent, but they, you know, somehow kind of get away with it. Following all this, they are actually called in to go to Redbot, which they end up returning to the base finally after being away for so long. And what ends up happening is that a ship is going to beam in someone into the base. So everyone's curious as to who it's going to be. Turns out to be Mick. So Mick returned after being away for a very short time, but that's only because he knows what's happened now. Now, there's actually logic here, because I was a little worried that they were just going to bring him back in. I'm glad that they didn't do that. They actually created a scenario which made sense, which is the fact that he knows that the Galaxy Warrior show is back on TV. What happens is that now that the ship has been repaired, they can do the show again, and there is a hologram projection that's shown with some technology that Mick has, which basically what happens is that it confirms that there's going to be another season of Galaxy Warriors, and they're after the Ninja Nexus Prism. So what ends up happening from here is Cosmo and Madame Odious also mention that there's going to be a monster that will be coming down to Earth and will be going after them and to find the Ninja Nexus Prism. That monster is Smellvant. The first time they actually say it, it's hard to really hear it in the show, but later on they actually say that it's much clearer. So keep that in mind. So yes, that is the monster that you might have seen in the preview clip, Smellvant. So then what happens is that the three of them are planning on returning down to Earth. In the meantime, the Rangers plan to go and, you know, deal with it, and they realize that they probably don't know that the Ninja Nexus Prism is not working anymore. So they think, you know, they're going to find it some way anyway, because they know where our base is. So we have to hide it, because we can't just put it in our base, because like they know where we are now. So what ends up happening is that they end up deciding to create a trap to make it so that they can attack the villains and keep the Ninja Nexus Prism safe. So what ends up happening from here is that they also get their ninja comms back, and they then decide to sneak and hide around the park area near the school. So what happens is that the three villains appear down on Earth looking for the Ninja Nexus Prism. The people of Earth think immediately to use the Miracle Monster Repellent, which doesn't work. It does create a smell, but Smellvant sucks it up through his nose, because he's basically a big elephant in a way. So when that happens, it's all gone, and they realize that the product that Victor and Monty made was not good. It didn't work, and they want their money back, obviously, at that point. Following this, what happens is that we end up seeing that the three of them, which are Odious, Vidana, and Smellvant, are actually find a statue that actually has the Ninja Nexus Prism, and Preston is actually sitting on a bench dressed as a guy in a suit and tie, just sitting there or whatever, and he decides to use his magic to summon a cage to try to capture the three villains. But Madame Odious sees it and actually puts it on the Rangers, which the Rangers are still in their training outfits, which is interesting. But again, they can't use their ninja stars. So at that point, what happens is that the cage is on them. Odious pulls out the Ninja Nexus Prism, sees that it's dead, and decides to use her evil magic to revive the Ninja Nexus Prism, which she does. And then what happens is that Vidana opens up the box that has the Super Ninja Steel. What happens is that Odious chooses to use her magic to get one of the Super Ninja Steel pieces into the Ninja Nexus Prism, and tries to convert the Ninja Nexus Prism into an evil Ninja Nexus Prism, so that it becomes an evil ninja stars, because she's able to make ninja stars now. So what she ends up doing is she tries to use her magic to forge it, and then suddenly they try to escape, which they end up doing that by Preston using his magic to pull the bars up and get them out. At that point, the Rangers have to fight Vidana and Smellvant, which works for a while, and then Madame Odious is still using her magic, but then eventually I believe it's Brody who actually attacks Madame Odious, and at that point the magic that she's using stops. So then at that point the Ninja Nexus Prism does its own magic, and it throws out at the Rangers a whole bunch of things. It throws out all their ninja stars, their elemental stars, the Lion Fire Armor Star, and the Lion Fire Zord Star. So they get back a whole bunch of stuff in one go. So all that happens, and the Ninja Nexus Prism is back to working again. So they're in pretty good state. It's pretty amazing also because, again, what happens is that they also end up launching the box that has the other Super Ninja Steel pieces, which there are 3 other pieces. And the thing is that because of that, they want to... what happens is that they actually launch it to Mick, which Mick actually catches it. So then at that point, the Rangers get back everything from one Super Ninja Steel piece, which is crazy. And following this, they end up fighting Smellvant, because the Odious and Vidana actually retreat. So at that point, Smellvant's left. The Rangers fight for a while. Eventually, Brody ends up using the Lion Fire Armor Star to become the Lion, the Lion Fire Red Ranger, which is cool. So he ends up fighting. Levi does a finisher, Preston does a finisher, Brody does a finisher, and then eventually Smelvin is destroyed. At that point, Cosmo, back in the Galaxy Warrior, Dome or whatever, ends up using the Gigantify ray to make Smelvin huge, and at that point Brody summons the Lion Fire Zord, and he ends up using it, turning it into the Lion Fire Megazord. They end up doing a whole bunch of attacks, and then they end up transforming it into the Lion Fire Megazord. And at that point, what happens is that we end up seeing the Lion Fire Megazord attack. They end up also doing the Zord version of it to attack as well. And then following all that, what ends up happening is that Smelvin's destroyed and the Rangers rejoice. We then end up seeing back on the Galaxy Warrior ship that Madame Odious says that she still has plans and she knows their weaknesses and she will attack them later. Following all this, what ends up happening is that we end up seeing the Rangers happy that they ended up defeating the monster, and they end up returning back to the base where they put up the Ninja Nexus prism back in its place. They end up asking Mick if he is going to stay with them or if he's going to return back to the Lion Galaxy, which he decides that he's going to stay with them as long as he needs to. So he is going to be there, which is great. He's an awesome character. So following all this, they're happy to be together again as a team, and then the Rangers return back to the school where we end up seeing that Victor and Monty are being chased, and they are in trouble now by everyone, and they lose all the money that they had gained. In fact, the school loses the money as well because the check that they had bounced because they don't have the money anymore, and they ask for their positions as students again. Now they're students again. So all this happens. Really interesting. So that's about it for this episode. I want to give you my last thoughts on it. I thought this episode was really good. It is cool to see that Sledge and Poisandra and Wrench all return this episode because of the fact that obviously they took the Super Ninja Steel from the asteroid. What that will likely lead to is that at some point later on, it could be the anniversary episode, it could be a few episodes later, Sledge will return with Wrench and Poisandra, and what will likely happen is that he'll be really annoyed because the Super Ninja Steel has been taken, and so at that point, what are they going to do? They're going to get angry, they're going to look for the Super Ninja Steel, and then they're going to attack the Rangers and potentially even join up with Madame Odious, you would imagine. Again, that was not shown in the previews for the trailer for the season, but that is what is likely to happen based off of certain expectations and also the fact that this is the 25th season and this is the anniversary season. The whole point that I mentioned before about, the asteroid being the asteroid that might be in the first episode of Dino Charge, again, that is not a fact, but that is something that people actually mentioned when the episode was airing, and I think that that's not a bad thought. It could be a possibility. It could be completely wrong, but I think that that's an interesting idea as a whole. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing when they'll return, because very likely they will, because why would they just show them for 2 seconds like that, you know? It seemed very quick, so obviously they're going to return. It's just a matter of when. So that is interesting to note. I don't know when myself, but I would imagine it will happen eventually. It might be after the spring season, or it might be at the very end of the of the spring season. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. So I would love to know your guys' opinions. Did you guys enjoy the first episode of Super Ninja Steel? Again, this is the 25th season. This is the first episode of this season, so very cool overall. I love to know your guys' opinions. Did you guys think it was good? Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So until then, guys, I'm Crazy Samurai 71, and goodbye, guys.